Welcome to our Bicycle Helper program. I'm James Meldrum.
I'm Jared Mackey.
And I'm Slide. So this is our overview for the bicycle program, and to start off, we will begin with the executive summary. Next slide. The executive summary, we have 7 main points that we'd like to cover, as you can see, that we're going to be addressing in this presentation. Next slide. For the introduction of our program, one of our main goals is to help middle school children learn how to ride a bicycle, which will be presented by Jared in this presentation. Next slide. The problem statement done by Jared will go over the casualty statistics involving bicycles and how we can prevent further middle school located in California, where Jared grew up. Next slide. For our program, we have set expected outcomes as a company to complete within a certain time frame, which will be presented by myself. Next slide. As a company, we will be addressing specific areas for the program in creating and designing phases. This plan will be presented by James in the presentation. Next slide. For the budget, which will be done by myself, will entail the amount it will cost to run the program and certain benefits that will be produced from the program as well. Next slide. Personnel and qualification will be presented by Jared about the training and skills that the employees will be needing or that they have for the job at task for this proposal or for the program that is implemented. Next slide. Finally, in facility and equipment, which will be done by James, we'll be addressing the space needed for the program. Space needed for the program. Next slide.
An overall interview of what we plan on doing is to make a program both in a lab and for a game and outdoor testing to teach kids how to properly ride a bike and to teach them the safety laws. And as we do, we will help them develop awareness on the road and to be active in all that they do. As I mentioned, there will be 2 major parts. One is the bicycle computer program, in which students at Diamond Valley Middle School will go to and will learn bike safety laws as they play this game. And once they finish this game, they will be able to go to the outdoor testing, in which will be in a parking lot, in which they will be able to test their knowledge that they learned in the lab of all the bike safety rules. So they were ready and feel confident as they ride a bike to school and going home as well. Next slide. Our main company goals are really to teach the basics of bike safety, to help students feel confident as they ride a bike, and to really help them as they learn the rules of the road. And we also want to help make the school environment better. We want to help make this community, kids, be happier in general. And as we do this, we will be able to help implement this program in other schools as well. Next slide. The reason we want to implement this program is for these 4 main reasons, and I will discuss them later. This is just an overview. Next slide. The problem at hand is the number of accidents that happen each year from students and riding their bikes. Within 1 year, there are very high percentage of numbers of accidents, and they usually occur in the morning and after school from students, and they usually occur within a 4-block radius of the school. This is a big issue. I grew up in this town, and most kids and most students ride their bike to school, and most grew up probably like I did, just being taught how to ride their bike in the driveway or just on the street, not knowing really the rules of the road and what's really how to be safe as they ride their bike and be aware of drivers and cars. Next slide. Here's a graph to help show you the statistics of the problem at hand. There are a rough estimate of about 120 students who ride their bike to this school at Diamond Valley. And there are, in this school itself, there are about 1,000 students. And in 1 year, there are 50 accidents that happen within 2-3 miles of the school. And within a 4-block radius, as previously mentioned, there are 30 accidents. And this is not to even count all the number of maybe close to accidents, drivers who have almost hit students on bikes and vice versa. Next slide. I kind of previously mentioned the causes of this is students being unaware of the bike rules. Too many students, being young, you get very confident as you learn how to ride a bike and ride to school. You want to be cool maybe and do certain things, but in the end, that's what causes all these accidents. The students who really are unaware of how to be safe as they ride to school, what roads to take, what roads not to take as they go to school. Some of the just minor effects from all these accidents and students who don't know how to ride to school is kids don't get the opportunity to learn bike safety rules to help them when they start driving. A bad rep can come about in many of the parents maybe not wanting their children to ride to school, and the community itself in the school will have less students riding their bike to school and just feeling safe as they go to school. Next slide. Our solution to this major problem of all the accidents is to implement this bike safety program. As all the accidents occur each year, I know as we develop this program that kids will develop an awareness on the road. They will be able to feel confident and feel safe as they ride their bike, and same with their parents and trusting their kids. And we will also be able to help them be active in school and maybe support in their sports and all that they do. Next slide.
All right, so the fifth part of our proposal is the objectives for the company for the bicycle program. Next slide. The expected outcome is to create a virtual program upon hire within 3 months for students to use, and to have a live practice with real bikes in planned situations that are provided to be aware of the rules on the road for bikers and cars. Next slide.
What you can see here is that our timeline for the project is 3 months for design and creation, and about 1 month for training and implementation. Next slide. For the design step, we're going to establish 2 main points. The first point is that we are going to gather all the information we can to teach about the bike safety laws. The second point that we need to establish is the best way to order our coding so it is stable and consistent across multiple people. This will allow, as changes are needed or if in further years updates are required, that it would be easier to read for new designers, so we don't necessarily always have to have the same staff on hand. Next slide. We plan on creating the program itself in C#. There's many libraries available that will allow us to generate 3D imagery as well as good programming elements available in C# itself. ASP.NET is going to be used to generate an online database so we can allow the teachers from all over the school to access the information, like testing results, from any computer without an installation required. This does require an on-site database to be installed, but we already have the materials available for that. Next slide. When we come to the testing portion, which we plan on beginning mid-November, it will be about 2 weeks worth of testing. We'll have 2 main groups, the students and the teachers. The students will have to be from different age groups so we can make sure that the learning environment promotes memorization as well as promotes knowledge of why the rules need to be followed. The teachers will be needed in the testing group because they're going to be proctoring the tests as well as running the practical course. Next slide. During the revision step, we're going to fix any major usage bugs found within the testing time frame. As we revise the bugs, we will have a smaller test groups, mostly the teachers, but occasionally with the students, to allow us to follow as we improve and as we fix any problems that were discovered. Next slide. The training stage is going to begin early December. We plan on training to all 3 stages. The learning stage, which is where the students are going to go to the computer lab and participate in the simulation. The practical stage is going to be where we set up a course and allow the bikes to go through with the students. And then the database access is going to be taught to any of the teachers and administrators that want to see the results of the tests as they're put into the machine. Next slide. Our deployment, we plan on deploying the actual system completely by January 1st. What this will allow us to do is begin a new semester with it in place. The checkout system is going to be implemented into the school's library system. And during the first month, we plan on keeping our programming staff on for countering any deployment issues. Next slide.
All right, so the 7th part of our proposal is our budget, which entails the total supplies and personal costs needed for the program and benefits in using our program as well. Next slide. The list required for the program is like the basics such as laptops for the virtual simulation, cones and bikes for practical application, and then for the benefits as to you when you apply this program is that you can rent this program out to schools around you so that you can gain some profit from it as well. Next slide. As you can see here in this graph, it shows the percentages of where the most money will be spent for this program. As you can see, most of the money that will be spent will be for the laptops. They're just the average standard laptops needed for running this program or this application for learning bike safety laws. Next slide. This table shows the quantity, a number of items we will be needing, including the hardware and the personnel, as well as averaging about how much those will cost altogether total. In the end, the total amount for this project or for this program, it will be roughly around $9,800 to run this program. Next slide.
The people and the employees that will be needed as we make this project are mentioned here in this slide, and this is just an overview of it. Next slide. The main person that will be needed in this project is a project manager. The project manager will make sure all requirements of the proposal and the project are being met. The project manager will be in charge of all the employees, making sure employees are effectively working and meeting their requirements as mentioned. The project manager will also be the one talking with the client and making sure the client is happy with how the project is going, and we'll be able to show the step-by-step process and examples of how the program looks like and how's it coming. The objectives manager will be in charge of all the goals and requirements to make sure this project is done within a good time requirement that we have. Objectives manager will set goals for each employee and each week for the company to make sure that we are completing and working hard in order to make sure this product is one that is effective and is completed on a date. Objectives manager will also be heading and making sure that the project follows each guideline as well. Next slide. The next major personnel needed for this project is a head software engineer. The head software engineer will make final decisions on the language being used, and one of the most important things is the design pattern. The software engineer needs to know which pattern to use to allow this program to be run efficiently and effectively for a desktop application. The software engineer will be leading all the other programmers, making sure they're completing their tasks that they're assigned by the software engineer and are doing it well, and the code is effective. The programmers will follow the head software engineer and make sure that all the code is completed well and works well and makes the application as smooth as can be. Next slide. The next part of our proposal in our project is we need to teach a teacher or someone to manage all the trainers for the lab and the bike. Since we do have two parts, the lab trainers and the bike trainers, the training manager will have to be familiar with both and be able to teach both as well. The training manager will be in charge of making sure the lab trainer knows how to manage the database and the program itself, making sure knowing how to run it and to be able to teach, and making sure all the students are able to run through the program efficiently and are happy as they do it. The bike trainer will be able to, needs to know how to properly teach all the principles taught in the bicycle program. The bike trainer needs to have a good grasp on how to teach students, because I mean there are middle school students in just a small environment, how to properly use signaling and the things that were taught in the bicycle program. The lab trainer needs to be familiar with as well a little bit about the bike training, so they can make sure that the programs, that every student passes each test before any student goes to the second part of the training. Next slide.
We're going to go over briefly where we're going to put things and where things are going to be set up. Next slide. Laptops are going to be stored in a new locker in the library. It will have a lock and key, and it will be checked out to the school library system. We'll assign a barcode to each laptop and make it available for checkout for any teacher. The bicycles and the practical course equipment, which will comprise the tall post cones, the ropes, and of course the bicycles, will be stored in the gym storage area. We will be purchasing a locker for the cones and a bike rack for the bicycles, as well as some locks for them. It's included in the bicycle pricing. Next slide. What we plan on doing is having a teacher come, check the laptops out of the library, bring it back to their classroom, run the tests, and then record the data onto the database, and then bring the laptops back to the library. The parking lot will need to be reserved for the practical test. We plan on having a 50-yard by 50-yard area lined out for it. Setup will take about 30 minutes. Takedown will also take around 30 minutes. The parking lot will need to be reserved within a week in advance in order to accommodate weekday usage and during school usage. And it will need to be reserved at least 3 days in advance for after school or weekend. Next slide. We've taken the problem that the students are having bicycle accidents, and we're having having issues with knowing the rules of the road. We're going to be able to teach them how to follow the laws and be able to apply them as they're out on the roads, as well as hopefully increase community awareness. We will be able to program and design within 3 months, train within 1 month, and then be ready to deploy. We will see a decrease in bicycle accidents. We'll see an increase in parents' confidence in our school, and we'll also be able to show our success to the areas around us and be able to sell our program to them and increase the profits for us. Thank you very much.